And this morning also, when I was going through the Times, I came across Frank Bruni's column, who is one of my favorite editorial or op-ed writers right now, Frank Bruni, for the New York Times. And when I read a little bit of his column, I thought, damn, that's what I've been talking about. Because the title of his column is, "We Will Never, Ever Be Rid of Donald Trump. There is no black Sharpie to write him out of our consciousness." You know, referencing his little map of the hurricane going to strike Alabama, right? Anyway, Bruni wrote this: House Democrats are inching closer to a formal impeachment inquiry, as if that's how best to exorcise Donald Trump from the body politic. Mark Sanford just became the third Republican to announce a 2020 primary challenge and to dream of a successful insurrection against an emperor whom most of the party meekly obeys. And, of course, as you know, 10 Democrats are going to take the stage tomorrow night for the next presidential debate. Anyway, Bruni says, so now's a good time as any to state what should be obvious to anyone who has considered Trump's psychology, registered his megalomania, and taken full account of his behavior today. Simply put, we will never, ever be rid of him. Oh, sure, Bruni writes, we may remove him from the presidency, which is no small thing, but that won't get him out of the nation's bloodstream. It sure as hell won't shut him up. If you think he has demolished all the norms of what it means to be the President of the United States, just wait until you see the sledgehammer he takes to the traditional role and restraint of former presidents. He won't be at an easel in remote Texas like George W. Bush. He won't be biting his tongue and taking big, deep, centering breaths like Barack Obama. A foundation devoted to good works? Been there, done that, and was a perfect mirror of the man, which is to say a complete sham. As a matter of fact, his foundation is under investigation by the state of New York. No, Bruni writes, he'll be tweeting, bleating, ranting, and raging in precisely the manner that he is now, just without the nuclear codes. And if that transition happens after November 2020, he'll declare the election, and this is where I thought Bruni was getting close to what I've been saying. He'll declare the election suspect, fraudulent, the result of a media crusade against him, the fruit of illegal votes. But Bruni stopped there because I thought the next thing he was going to say would be, and he won't leave office, which is what I'm afraid of. Anyway, Bruni goes on, he pressed that narrative, all this was against him, in 2016, even though he was declared the victor. A winner that sore is poised to be an epically nasty loser. And I have an easier time imagining a Thelma and Louise remake starring Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin, you know about that, than I do the Trumps graciously beckoning the Warrens across the threshold of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Yeah. That's the part that really has me concerned. Anyway, Bruni goes on, the post-Trump landscape, or rather the impossibility of one, is on my mind in part because of prediction by Brad Parscale, the manager of the Trump 2020 campaign at a California Republican convention last weekend. In a speech to delegates, Brad Parscale said, quote, the Trumps will be a dynasty that will last for decades, propelling the Republican Party into a new party, end quote. And then The Atlantic published a cover story by McKay Coppins that in some ways raised the same prospect, reporting that Ivanka and Don Jr. are jockeying to be their dad's rightful political heir and noting that the Trump progeny are genetically wired to wring every last droplet from their father's celebrity that they can. Flashback to the night of November 2016 when the family watched the election returns. McKay Coppins wrote that they were in shock because Trump, quote, was supposed to go down in a spectacular blaze of made-for-TV martyrdom that all of them could capitalize on. Ivanka had a book coming out. Don and Eric were working on a line of patriotically themed budget hotels. And preliminary talks were underway to launch a Trump-branded TV network that would turn disgruntled voters into viewers. Now, they needed a new plan, end quote. A new plan because the monster got elected. Bruni says, apparently it's one modeled after the Kennedys or the Bushes, only with a much bigger budget for hair and makeup. Best of luck, Trumpkins. I just don't see it. Ivanka, or as I like to think of her, Our Lady of the DMZ, Ivanka has shown a shocking tone deafness during her White House romp. And Don Jr. was the nitwit emailing ecstatically and then lying badly about the June 2016 meeting with the Russian adoption evangelists. These two have all of Dad's gall, but only a scintilla of his guile. Trump won't hang around by proxy, and the next generation of opportunists with his surname or agenda, that would negate the whole point of his pivot into politics. It wasn't to promote ideas, it was to promote himself. Health permitting, and I have a feeling Bruni just gritted his teeth when he wrote that. Health permitting, he'll move heaven and earth to maintain his omnipresence in American life, by which I mean he'll be as outrageous as he must to stay in the news. And we in the media will confront a decision. Give him what he wants, or let go of him and all the eyeballs he draws. Even if we let go, there's a strong possibility that he'll establish his own media enterprise with a network where the news really is fake. Adulation doesn't hinge on nuisances like the ballot box, and Sean Hannity isn't the model for Trump veneration. He's the baseline. And from that coddled perch, Trump can take out his big black Sharpie and write higher vote counts over his actual official ones. He can draw horns on John Bolton and a halo over William Barr. He can sketch a second White House adjacent to the first one, but taller and with gold trim. That's where he'll be living. His power fictive, but his presence ineluctable, snappily ever after. Oh! Jesus Christ, that gives me the shivers. Now, Bruni, of course, unlike your humble and obedient servant here, Bruni works for a legitimate journalism empire. So Bruni can't say, or he'd be accused of floating conspiracy theories or originating them, what I can say on our little podcast here. And that is simply, I just don't think the monster is going to leave. I've said this before. And I usually follow up with, why should he? What's to make him leave? When he can get the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to have its leadership force the National Weather Service to lie in order to validate Trump's ignorance. I mean, my God, it's the Weather Bureau. Now, aside from the fact that most of us depend on weather reports to some degree. I mean, if you're going to go with your family on a picnic, right? You want to know, is it going to rain today? Is it going to be 100 degrees? Blah, 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 blah. And some of us depend on weather reports to a much greater degree. I think immediately of NASA or any of these private companies now that are engaged in launching space vehicles. You have to know what the weather is and what it's going to be during the time you're launching. Just one example. What if you're farmers? What if you're a builder? What if you are somebody that lays huge amounts of concrete to build a road or something, But Trump, in Trump world, no. You will say what I say is valid, is true. Anything else is false, is fake news. Oh, the wall's coming up just fine. Ah, Jesus.
Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.